Alright, hello, Zeteo here. Today we're doing a speed cast. I'm going to set the speed right now to 1.5. Today we are looking at a game of two players that are not in the... I usually look for games that are, 40 plus at least. Usually I try to strive for 50
Game
plus.
started.
Oh, we're starting. Alright, so we are actually taking a look at a game between two mid-30 OS players. Today we're looking at Ezreal as our red player, our red Cortex player on the left-hand side. And on the right we have Are You Not Entertained, our blue Cortex player on the right. Now these players, I decided to do this game because these two players are players that you might know from the community. So our blue player here is a name change. They are also known as Chronopolize. And on this other side, Ezreal is also known as Eural. So two players you might know from the community, have been around for a little bit. And, it's kind of cool to see them play 1v1s. They're typically 8v8 players. And this is on CCR, so, typically you see a lot of vehicles on this map because there basically is no wind and you have to rely on solars, and there's a lot of metal, so it's kind of like it's easy to get metal. Vehicles are a little bit more expensive on metal than energy compared to bots, and then at the same time the vehicles have a bit more speed, are able to get places, and this is kind of a long distance to your opponent. The map is 16 wide, 12 tall, so it's a little bit bigger. It's flat, it's good for vehicles, so that's what we're going to be seeing here. By the way, if you like my content, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, and all that good stuff. Anyways, we got a couple of scouts out here for Chrono. Looking at damage, some stuff. He's going to take out that scout from Eural, so he can potentially keep damaging this construction vehicle. Decides to get out of there instead, wait for a second one, I suppose, but the incisors are starting to come out for Eural, so he's got some limited time to take down this constructor. He definitely could have gotten it. That would have been a big deal, or would be a big deal if you got it. But the incisors come up here and now shoo away those scouts, getting some scouts out for himself. So yeah, kind of a missed opportunity here from Chrono. Losing that constructor is a big deal on this map because you want to start getting those mexes up, very, very quickly here. Primarily because you're building solar for your energy production, and you need some extra metal to do that. And each mex that you add on is kind of a big deal. Chrono, meanwhile, over here on this side, has a couple cons boosting his lab, has his commander outs expanding. This is pretty typical on this kind of map, by the way. And that's because you don't really have a lot of metal to work with, so you can't really afford putting down something like a nano early on because you're spending all that money on solars. So, you want to expand quickly, and the quickest way to do it is to send your commander out. So you do want your commander to leave, but you do want some cons, some constructors assisting the lab so that you're able to spend your metal and get those units out to defend and to attack all in good time. So not too much is going on right now. I do want to talk a bit about their expansion paths here. Chrono here, both players taking the rotationally symmetric spawn position, very typical on this map, to take these mexes as your start, and then, how you play that out or how you expand can, mean it's going to be a little bit more defensible or a little bit more aggressive, or, maybe it's a little bit more defensible later on, but it's a little bit more vulnerable now. So the way that Chrono is expanding, his commander moved up here and then down here and is moving out this way, right? So what this tells me is that he's setting up defenses like this. He's got another con down here expanding. He's even got an exploiter down here. So that's going to help out defend this corner. So his strategy here is a little bit more, I'm going to be in the corner and minimize the, the surface area of my base so that it's easier to defend. Meanwhile, I should clear this. Meanwhile, Eural's expanding this way with his commander, also sending a con out this way. And this is kind of half of what I like to do personally. Is I like to have some constructors and stuff go out towards the bottom here, put down a radar, because that helps you spot for any raids coming down from this direction. and that just helps keep you safe because then you can send units down there as need be. And then I also like to send something up this direction as well to do the same thing at the top side, and that just helps have radar coverage everywhere, as opposed to just having it in a corner. So vulnerability wise, there is a vulnerability on Chrono's side because raiding units can come this way. There is a radar in this crater here that can see somewhat, but it's really hard to see stuff coming from that direction until it's too late, and your army's typically like out here somewhere, right? So having to send them back is a little bit rough. You ideally want to intercept it before they get all the way into your base like that. Yeah, Eural has some vulnerabilities at the north as well. He doesn't have a radar out there quite yet. Bit of a skirmish here in the middle. A couple of those incisors coming into Chrono's base, but they are taken out as well. But yeah, again, these guys are they kind of started with 8v8s. So, typically in 8v8s, you have your section of the map that you control. So it ends up being a little bit more like, you got your lane against their lane, and it just becomes this like, you guys are bashing heads within your lane, right? But in 1v1s, especially when the map is bigger, there's a lot of other room to attack. And so 1v1 players will be like hitting all these different directions, trying to make sure that you are, not expanding too quickly. But yeah, these two 8v8 players might be a little bit more inclined to have this middle battle in this location. And then, if we're lucky, maybe we'll get to see them try to find some other angles to go through. I mean, I suppose Chrono is going for, a raid at this bottom location here. And I guess he is sending some units at the top as well, so there is that. But yeah, just having a lot of units kind of like parked in the center here, or, in one of these center locations. Instead of having them a little bit more spread out, I think 1v1 players would be a little bit more active, trying to like send these around, trying to find angles where maybe there's, a little bit less defense and ways to get into your opponent's base. But yeah, these incisors here, actually going to be able to just pick these off. The incisors for Eural just not quite being in position, and there's just too many incisors here from Chrono. So Chrono is doing some damage down here. He does have these units at the top, but for right now, they're mostly spotting. Whereas they potentially could have taken this out, potentially moved on, and taken out some stuff in the back. But yeah, primarily just having those units in the center here and switching into those medium tanks. Medium tanks are fast, but they're not quite as fast as things like incisors. And typically on this map, you see a lot of things like incisors because it is so open. But yeah, these 8v8 players going for something a little bit slower. With these medium tanks for now, maybe gonna switch into something even slower eventually. Eural has added on these lashers in this location. But yeah, I think Chrono's looking at that and saying like, okay, there's some opportunity here. Let's, I got these faster medium tanks. I can maybe exploit the fact that he has spent some money into these slower units and not been able to get to the places he needs to be with those units. So Eural just lacking on the medium tank fronts at the moment because of that. And now Chrono showing up with some shurikens as well. So he can potentially just shut these units down. But for right now, I guess the shuris are just at the top corner. Okay, so now they're moving into position, but now the medium tanks are at the top left. I don't know. But yeah, just trying to shut stuff down. I mean, there's a lot going on the map, right? You kind of need a lot of APM to play 1v1s, especially at a higher level. So, understandably, some of the APM falters and, things happen. But yeah, now these shurikens come up here, but yeah, it's so close to the base. There's anti-air in the base, so yeah, Chrono just gonna lose them and not get too much done there. You're also having plenty of units out here for defense now. I think that these medium tanks didn't quite do as much as maybe they wanted to do. But they took out quite a few mexes here, so I mean it's pretty reasonable. And maybe you can take out some of these exploiters, especially if you shuts them down with those shurikens. We do have some transition, or another transition here. We have some bots coming out. We got some thugs, and thugs are another. They're probably I think they're the slowest like T1 unit in terms of ground units anyway. And with that, it's like, yeah, they have some good power density. but the thing is, they kind of cost a lot of energy. You don't, it's kind of hard to afford them because of the energy cost. But I suppose if you are overproducing energy like Chrono is, and you're spending your metal, it can be a nice thing to add in. But again, this is a very wide open map, and these thugs are very, very slow. So, these are more going to be used to push forward here instead of doing raids on the sides or some like crazy thing like that, because you'll spot them a mile away and be able to defend them, or at least in theory you should be able to, because they are so slow. Yeah, these cons up here actually coming up here, even gonna reclaim the exploiter here. It's a kind of a crazy position. I wonder if he's just gonna add on a bunch of towers there or what. Meanwhile, these medium tanks come out here. Eural's commander's in this location as well, so he's got to be careful. Actually, he's got some thugs of his own. I find that all very interesting, because typically you don't see that on this map. But yeah, these medium tanks, so I get in the back here, they've done some significant damage already. But yeah, able to just kind of pull these forces from Eural away from the center. And now Chrono's coming in here with these plasma bots. I mean, I guess he's trying to be really careful with them. He's trying not to just like lose them. But I feel like there's definitely a very big potential to attack here, but at the same time he's got to worry about these grunts coming up here. So these grunts, well, I mean, yeah, maybe it poses some threat, but he does have these exploiters out here, so gonna actually be able to clean that up pretty quickly there. Meanwhile, the medium tanks on the bottom left side, basically APM stalled out, so Chrono looking at that and saying like, okay, these guys are dead, I'm just gonna self-D them so they don't leave Rex behind. Which is a good idea, of course, so that your opponent doesn't get that metal or doesn't get the energy. All right, so we got a pretty fast T2 transition here from Chrono. Like this map, again, you get so much metal, you can make those transitions quite quickly. So he's got the Tsar out. The Tsar's, of course, going to be really, really strong against these T1 units. And I think this is a reasonable time. I mean, he's kind of forced Eural to be rather defensive, so Eural's not attacking, not applying pressure, and that allows Chronopolize to, get that T2 rolling. So of course, Eural's response is to get T2 himself, has started reclaiming some labs to do so. Yeah, income-wise, like it's pretty even here. But yeah, Eural's going to have to shoo this away. Now the Tsar's going to do some massive damage, and it can also absorb a lot of fire here, so he's got to be really careful. I think this is kind of an overstep here. He kind of went for the commander. The commander was in that mess, and now it's just getting out of there. So Eural actually took quite a loss there in army value. He did have a nice approach. He had some spread units, and Tsars have massive AoEs, so you want to avoid the AoE as much as possible. But yeah, it just ended up not being enough given all the units that Chrono has at this location as well. So, I don't know. Eural, I think, is in okay position here. They're pretty much even on metal income except for reclaim. Once in a while, Eural's getting a massive amount of reclaim here. And Eural's also ahead on energy. So, I think Eural's in a pretty good spot despite losing all that. Personally, I would like to see some units maybe just like go up here a bit more. This is like relatively undefended, so just having something go through there. I mean, exploiters are really tanky, so it's not like you can just send a few grunts and take out everything. You kind of need to plan it. You kind of need like a reasonable force to take it out. But yeah, again, you got so much metal on this map, especially if you are continuing to take these mexes. There's certainly a lot of mexes here, by the way, that haven't been taken for Eural. But he has done a good job just making sure that he's keeping up with those mexes that he lost at the top left and at the bottom right. Or I'm sorry, bottom right. Or bottom left. I don't know why I always want to say right instead of left. Like no matter what, like it's kind of crazy. But yeah, it's just like this weird mix of units from Eural here. You got your thugs, you got your pounders, you got your medium tanks, you got your quakers. Like it's just kind of like this weird mix. Like the thugs, yeah, sure, they help out. Like they are tanky, so you can absorb a lot of fire from them. But yeah, since they're so slow, it's hard to get them into the position to be truly, helpful. It's a little bit behind the army here. Same with the pounders, a little bit too slow to be like with the rest of the army. So you just gotta be careful. But yeah, Banisher, great unit to have in this kind of map. Quaker can be useful. They're a lot cheaper, but they can only fire in a forward direction. So, you know, there's some give and take with that. They're better for like setting up places. You don't want to be skirmishing with them. You want to skirmish with things like Banishers, who can fire in 360 degrees. So, you know, I don't, you know, Quaker is fine, but if you're gonna have this you know, this slog of a fight, then you know, you kind of want your Quaker sitting in the back, you know, waiting for something to come up to attack, and just have other units such as the Banishers and Tigers move forward in and out of combat, so that you know, you run up as you can, and as your opponent tries to push you, you run back and things like that, and you just kind of skirmish a little bit more. Yeah, Chrono has actually added on quite a few twin guards at the top here, or towards the top here, so it's just setting up some extra defenses to ensure that he's able to you know, maintain holding that position. But Eural is primarily just attacking down the center here, so you know, I think Chrono here is maybe just not taking as good of a trade here overall, losing some of his Banishers, losing his Quakers, and now Eural's just got this overwhelming force. I'm not sure if you know, if Chrono's able to maintain anything, maintain fighting it. What I would like to see, and actually this might be one of the bigger reasons for it, is he still has these labs sitting here idle. I mean, I guess he's using the bot lab, but I mean, are these, I mean, sure, and yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to absorb damage with grunts, but grunts aren't as cheap as they used to be. You know, so you're kind of spending a lot on potentially on grunts to just absorb damage, and if you don't have enough Banishers to deal the damage back, well, now you're just kind of dead, I suppose. So great game by Eural, actually, just having some really good unit control in that last little bit there. You know, and there's not much you can do once you get super overwhelmed, especially in like a more central location, you know, because if the units are ramming through one location and they're getting pretty close to your base, like, you can't just like go out and exploit the weakness of that kind of play. The weakness being, you know, raiding on the sides and things like that to you know, make it difficult for that player to defend the locations, and just, you know, so then they lose mexes, and then eventually they have less units or whatever because of the raids. But yeah, when your opponent's that close to you, you can't really afford to do that. You kind of have to deal with it, and if you don't deal with it well enough, well, now you're just gonna lose the fight, and they just keep pushing, and you lose the game. But yeah, I think it really comes down to having those extra labs sitting there idle. You know, that's just metal sitting there that could have been spent on other things, and then perhaps even overspending a little bit on I mean, he had some defenses going. He also had the fusion. The fusion's a good call long term, but it takes a minute to you know, pay for itself. They are a lot more efficient than the solars, but once you get it, it's like you can start reclaiming some of the solars, turn them into units, and I don't think Chrono quite did that, you know, maybe being a little bit too distracted by all the fighting and whatnot. Anyways, again, if you guys enjoyed this cast, this speed cast that I do, I try to put out one of these videos at least every other day. On the weekends, I do sometimes put out some extra videos as well. So yeah, like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it if you enjoyed the cast. If you did not, feel free to leave me some critique in the comments. I'm trying to improve how I talk about things and not stumble over my words as often, and hopefully I did a reasonable job this time. But yeah, it's always something I'm looking to do better at. Anyways, I am Zeteo, and I am signing out. Thanks for watching.